I just did this whole episode and the mic wasn't set right, so we're going to do it over. Hey, this is Dusk 108. This is the Dusk 108 show, the flagship show for Aurorasoul.com. This episode might even be better than the one I didn't record the audio for because I'm warmed up now, apparently. Welcome back, welcome in, and I hope you enjoyed my intro. If you watched the entire thing, if I even allowed the entire thing to play, because I really did make a whole music video that I try to cut down enough to not annoy you immediately. This is the Dust 108 show. This episode will be featuring the following segments, which I'm looking at up here. I have my lights also over here. My mic is right before you, and my keyboards to this section over here that I'm probably going to awkwardly turn to when I need to. The opening would include what I've been including, as well as some comments about dating. Now, I went over a few minutes with the episode that I just deleted because it has no audio. But this one should be short and succinct, hopefully. And following that, I'm going to talk about tips for AI, tips for artists to embrace AI. I'm going to have a short film, which is probably going to be 5 minutes long, if even that. It's a voiceover of a monologue. Well, you know what? I'm going to terribly explain it, so I'll just give you the title of it. Depending on the subject, I decide to edit into this piece. The tuning fork narrative. Maybe. That narrative is something I talked about in regards to how I view reality. So if that whets your mental palate, hopefully it will be as good as I'm setting it up for. Following that is my science news brief. I got 2 articles about 2 stories that came out within the last week, and I kind of want you to know about them and give me your opinion. Last but not least will be my business news, which is just an overview of what we're doing for Aurorasoul right now and what you can expect going forward. Next up is dating stuff. So cue whatever I got queued up. So my dating conversation is based on one subjective analysis, and that is, why am I single? And the answer to that, without any delay, is because I think I want a business partner more than I want a companion. I would love my companion to also be my business partner, because my life is my business right now. So there really isn't alternative narratives of lifestyles that I negotiate with outside of my other day gig. And I don't really want a dating circle that reflects a short-term goal, especially professionally speaking, right? Because my business endeavors through Aurorasoul are long-term goals, and you'll learn more about 2 of them at the end of this, at the end of the entire episode. But it's vastly important for me to have someone that I can build this with, because what I'm trying to build essentially is an accent to the improvement of human civilization. I know that sounds kind of like, but I'm going with it. Like, that's the whole point. Like, me selling t-shirts beforehand was a means to an end, so I can develop platforms and resources to contribute towards what I envision us having at this point in our human history, to what I envision us having accessibility to, especially medically speaking, and career-wise, with your freedoms and your choices and the availability of things that can satisfy our greater human desires without even being too mysterious about it. Like, we have an abundant imagination, and we parallel a time that offers abundance, but the availability of it, or rather the accessibility of said abundance, is restricted because of a whole other thing I get into. But most of us identify the institutions in the world we live in accordingly, because the majority of us are suffering more than our so-called leadership. At least I feel that way. And I mean, look at what I'm talking about now. Like, how can I just go out on regular dates? I totally dig regular stuff, but I need the person to be deeper. I need us to have a deeper connection associated and affiliated with things that parallel with our passion. Because what is love and dating without passion? What are you passionate about? Right? So the answer to that question determines, for the both of us, whom I'm enthusiastic about and who I am not enthusiastic about. And without enthusiasm, I ain't no point in dating because I just don't have it. I can't fake enthusiasm or interest. I can't even front. I try to. I think that's what the issue is. Like, when you take away sex out of the equation, which is also why I'm single, because someone legit must have felt like it was a compliment to tell me, oh yeah, I like you, I can see you as someone I would sleep with, after X, Y, and she went on, but like, just the whole, she's a cool person, but that turned me off from jump. And we had 2 more conversations where sex was a topic far outside my intended topics, which kind of disappointed me, but at the same time I get it. Everyone has that interest, ours just didn't align at that time. She was more interested in sexual topics and I was more interested in like everything else. So yeah, that's my perspective, subjective experiences with dating, and why I, for the most part, am single. I have my own other plethora of things that might be considered hot messes, but for the most part, when I'm with someone or gearing up to be with somebody, I know I can be super dedicated, and that dedication can kind of bite you in the ass. Like, I really do compare myself to an enthusiastic puppy. I'm a man that's grown with capabilities, but my enthusiasm becomes as sincere as just a puppy-eyed dog, and that leaves me vulnerable, and I don't want to be vulnerable because I also socially miss certain cues, and that's a crutch I have to deal with, like missing certain cues, and the person not being aware creates conflicts and misunderstandings, and then it just snowballs. But yeah, so maybe I'll get more into dating in some future episodes, maybe I won't, but for right now I'm moving on to tips for artists who want to or need to embrace AI. The reasoning for embracing AI is pretty simple. If you're an artist or anyone, we're not going to be able to help it, and not help embracing it, but help it stop it from embracing us. It's going to be pretty abundant, and it's going to be established in a lot of mundane, everyday institutions. Some things that many of us might take as novelty might be co-opted by AI. And it's going to be something we need to get used to, because now there's a new social subroutine in our society. And it's with AI. It's interacting with and engaging with AI systems that we need to engage with as a whole, right? But for an artist, it's more difficult because AI infringes on the very skill set dynamic that defines who you are, your profession, and the list goes on. But one way of embracing it as an artist would be to embrace this new emerging job title, a prompt engineer. If you've seen any research or any highlights about prompt engineers, what is that? Well, someone who can speak the language of AI to generate the proper, close to actualized results. Whatever you actually want, and the prompt engineer can communicate those details into whatever in system they're interacting with that generates art based on the AI's algorithm and you communicating with what to do. I'm not going to have too many opinions about the prompt engineer. I do as an industry, but we're going to leave that aside for now, because the most important thing is it exists, it's emerging, And as an artist, you already speak most of the language. You speak the creative language. All you need to know now are how to format it into the right prompt segments to generate your expected outcome artistically. If you don't want to use AI wholly with text and prompts, then you can use it as an accent, which is the second reason you can embrace AI art. You can use it as an accent or foundation or template for more creative opportunities. Something outside of your field, something that you wouldn't do otherwise, but now through AI you can merge it with a larger piece that you envision. You can use AI to just create segments. You can use AI to create aesthetics or backgrounds or just repetitive nuances. But you don't have to necessarily replace, however, your preferred medium in form of expression artistically. You don't have to replace it with AI fully. You don't have to sit there and type on a keyboard things that you would otherwise prefer to draw. But you can craft things to draw on. That's one, I guess, background way of using AI art, not putting it in the foreground, literally, like create backgrounds and then use that to design over, right? I mean, roughly speaking. The third way, my, I guess, favorite theoretical way, would be to use it to create more complex pieces entirely. So that is to say, whatever your medium is, maybe you are a mixed media artist, which I guess might be an easier, I don't know, easy I guess would be too subjective, but being a mixed media artist gives you more flexibility theoretically to embrace AI and use it as a component and not the singular form of expression. So like, you're not dependent on AI producing your art, you're just depending on AI to produce this part of your collage, right? And that might be one of the most brilliant ways of using it, similar to the second way of creating just backgrounds and accents to your larger work. Now you're creating pieces to your larger work. And this also would parallel if you are creating something like, if you're sculpting an angel and you know that this angel has wings, and you know that the wings have but so many variations in its feather design, would you hand sculpt a feather, make a mold out of it, and maybe even use 3D printing based on a scan of your hand sculpture? At that point, that tool is an accent to what you've already created. It's just taking out some of the repetitive nuances of hand sculpting every single wing, every single feather in the wing, but yet you're still able to create depth in broad perception by having these singular wings add up to the whole. These singular feathers rather add up to the whole wing. So that's one other way of thinking of AI art and using it to generate nuances for larger work to begin with. If you're an artist and you are still on the fence about where you should be with AI, I definitely empathize with you, because I would prefer it not to be, rather than something we have to negotiate with, especially when it comes to how it's been used, infringing on your own intellectual style and property. But once it's stabilized, because it's going to have to be, and once it becomes more of AI pulling from a approved gallery, which some businesses are working on. I think Adobe has a feature where contributing artists, similar to if you're using background media from Shutterstock or anywhere else where you can upload and maybe get some change if people use your content, that's being implemented in a similar way for AI art galleries and generators to pay artists based on how frequent the AI refers to your style or your context in generating these amount of pieces. So I think that's a brilliant and probably the best way we're going to be able to embrace AI going forward as artists. But nevertheless, we need to find ways to embrace it. Otherwise, it's going to overwhelm the ones who don't. For WebLink's news brief this episode, I'm looking at two articles, one from CNET and one from CNN. The CNN one mentions 4 artists NASA picked for the first crewed moon mission in 50 years. Now, what's significant about the headline and something that other news outlets, I guess, put focus on is one's a brother and one astronaut, the four is a woman, which is our two first. Unless you watch For All Mankind on Apple TV, then we're probably 30 years behind the history of that alternative version of our history. But it's big news because more diversity, right? And we are finally getting re-engaged into exploring the moon and probably using it more of an economic hub for further solar system space exploration. Like, we're still in space, but we're really just trying to figure out, all right, how do we get to the moon so we can get to Mars, and then within other bodies, large bodies in our space, like, other moons, not Jupiter itself, but maybe some of its moons, Saturn, same thing, some of the moons, looking for all types of evidence of life and water and things that prove we're not just out here dicking around as a species solo. The next article from CNET, and if you are worried about us dicking around as a species solo, well, maybe AI can be our friends. As previously mentioned in my segment for artists, this one talks about Elon Musk and tech leaders urge pause in AI boom, citing profound risk. What this is leading into covers an article, a signed open letter about about 1,000 tech leaders, Elon Musk, Steve Wozniak, some people that founded companies that you might be using utilities for and will never know the names of, especially not from this segment because I didn't read through all the names and list myself. But it's an open letter signed by tech leaders who are urging at least 6-month pause. They're calling for a halt in development of AI systems more advanced than GPT-4 for at least 6 months. And if I can get a tidbit from the article, what it states, advanced AI could represent a profound change in the history of life on Earth and should be planned for and managed with commiserate and care and resources. I've effed up that one word. The letter says, unfortunately, this level of planning and management is not happening, even though recent months have seen AI labs locked in and out of control race to develop and deploy ever more powerful digital minds that no one, not even their creators, can understand, predict, or reliably control. So that's part of what the open letter details as their reasoning for asking for a pause. I feel like they're well within their goddamn reason, because like, if you guys are the ones probably going to use it and you saying right now you afraid you can't control it, I think I might want you to control this. I mean, it's better use of their time and energy than controlling humans. Let's control this AI for a little bit. Give us a minute. Let's build some systems in place to manage the systems that are vastly affecting not only the quality of life but the direct economy and the direct potential for many people to maintain their jobs, especially white collar, if I'm not mistaken. One quick stat illustrates, I think 80% of American jobs will be affected by AI. So that's most of us. Let me know your thoughts. I mean, are you afraid of AI? Do you think it should be paused? Do you think it should be managed in one way or another? And what, if any, are those ways you can envision AI being managed? And also, what do you think it should be doing? I don't think it should be doing art. What do you think AI should be used for? Your top 3. You can just give me one, but if you have a top 3, what do you think? Let me know in the comments, and we can have a discussion. That was my news brief for the week. I hope you follow up with some of the stories that I covered, the 2 stories that I covered. And if you didn't, I'll give you 2 new ones next week. Don't worry about it. Last up, we have a quick business news brief. Hey, we made it. It's the end of the show. I'm going to stop after I tell you some updates about my projects, and then you can go ahead and nod your head and give me a like. Hopefully subscribe, and don't worry too much about what you just witnessed, and come back for more anyway. 2 projects, 2 apps. One is for Aurorasoul.com. That one's going to be a precursor for Project Diadem, which, if you've been around for a minute, maybe a year, on and off, like I've been with my own content, you may have heard me talk about Project Diadem. And to briefly overview its importance, it's a world economic social. It's a social economic app. I want to say world changing. I want to be over enthusiastic, but let me just be stable. It's a social economic app, and it's designed for its users to benefit financially from your passions, your lifestyles, your interests, and your pursuits. It's my answer to how I feel society should work, especially in an institutional economic way. We have a lot of distractions that are governed by facilities that aren't fundamental to our success as a species or further evolution. Not the most important, it's entertainment in one way, shape, or form. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think for all the distracting parts of our world, of our community, of our nature that we have, there should be a dividend for that, because what are all these things distracting us from? Well, it's usually ourselves, like the things that we could be doing to become better or as good as what we are being given in the form of sports and entertainment media. I mean, we could be doing more of our lives, like literally. It's nothing wrong with our favorite shows. I have my list. But am I watching it right now? No, I'm recording this twice because something about knowing that it's done makes my free time, rolling a joint, sitting by the fire, even when I'm by myself, even when I'm pondering being single and dating, something about fulfilling this work, my work, takes this thing off of everything in life. And I think every person needs to enjoy and witness that type of fulfillment, because it's not always just financial. Lord knows I want it. It's not always life-changing for someone else, and Lord knows I want that as well. But the effort and the fruit that is born from following your passion, and just trying to find your version of expressing your passion, it's worth it. It's worth it for every individual. And I think that's the most important thing that makes humankind unique, is that each one of us can have something solely manifested as a result of our existence. So, yes, that's my business news. That's one app. That's 2 apps, Aurorasoul.com app, and then Project Diadem app, which is the other thing I just got done trying to emotionally sell you. And hopefully you stick around to hear more about it. Hopefully you are one of the first users of the app, and you can see for yourself how I can design a system on a whim. Honestly, I do need more tech help. Lord knows, my third one tonight. I do need more tech help, and it is a community, a partnership in developing this app. But the theory behind it is elementary. It's just a different way of utilizing our current tools, and we have the technology now to maximize our abilities for personal gain, wealth, and stability. And that's kind of like the goal of the app. So anyway, this has been Dusk 108. This has been my show. I hope you enjoyed everything. And if you didn't, go to Aurorasoul.com, find something else to enjoy. And if you don't enjoy any of this stuff, but you still took time to find out how much you didn't enjoy it, I still appreciate you. Thank you, and stay bright.